Welcome to episode number 3 of the National Land Realty Podcast, where we discuss all things land. Our goal is to inform, educate, and entertain those of you who own land or are interested in the buying and selling of land throughout the United States. My name is Mac Christian, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at National Land Realty. I'll be your host for this episode. Today, our topic will be elk hunting in Missouri with land professional Alec Wardenburg out of St. Louis, Missouri. This discussion is based on the article Elk Hunting in Missouri by Alec Wardenburg and published on our blog at nationalland.com. Prior to working with National Land Realty, Alec worked in ag sales for ManaPro Animal Health, specializing in animal health supplements and equine and pet nutrition. He proudly serves in the Army National Guard and is a graduate of the University of Missouri. Combine this with a lifetime of hunting, fishing, and agriculture, and you have a wealth of knowledge on the topic at hand. Now, sit back and enjoy the show. All right. My name is Mac Christian, and I am Chief Marketing Officer here with National Land Realty. I'm sitting here with Alec Wardenburg out of Missouri. Alec is a land professional with National Land Realty. Alec, why don't you take a second and introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about, how you came into the business and your background with hunting, with the outdoors.
Yeah, Mac, definitely. So first of all, thanks for having me on here. I'm excited to talk a little bit about Missouri elk hunting as it's a very new thing. So I am the land broker, land professional here on the eastern side of Missouri. So our office is here in Old Town, Wentzville. So we kind of cover everything, maybe west to Columbia, north up to Mark Twain Lake, and down south towards the Boot Heel. But been with National Land since 2019. Last year was a big year for us here in Eastern Missouri. Opened up a new brokerage office, here in Wentzville, and also worked towards getting our broker's license, opening up an office in Illinois. So that's a new exciting thing coming our way. How I got into the land business, I graduated from University of Missouri with an ag business degree and a minor in plant science. So always kind of wanted to go, into the ag side of things. Found out about National Land through a random military connection. Sometimes you never know where the road's going to lead. So started with National Land as an agent and been doing it ever since. So
you don't just work with just land real estate. You have multiple points of emphasis in your background, education wise, as far as you study plants, study agriculture. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So in college, my first, real internship, professional job, I worked for a company called ManaPro, which is an animal feed supplement company. So they started out, selling calf manna, which is a well-known just feed supplement. But when I started working for them, man, they were getting into everything. So we were selling backyard poultry supplies, dog treats, horse products, fly spray and things like that. So I had the opportunity to become well-versed in a lot of different areas of kind of the veterinary side and the ag sales side put together. So I did that for actually 3 years in college. And I think I got a lot of sales experience there, getting to drive around, meet with local landowners, small feed stores, and then up to the big, Rural King, things like that. So I hang my hat on that quite a bit where, just getting introduced to sales side of things. And then during college, I also did Army ROTC. So I am in the Army National Guard. I'm a first lieutenant in an engineering unit here in Missouri, out of Festus. So we have mainly heavy equipment operators, so big bulldozers, skid steers, all kinds of fun stuff to shape the battlefield, as they say. So wear a lot of different hats, but wouldn't have it any other way.
That's fascinating. When you go out to talk to a ranch or somebody that's selling ranch land or buying ranch land, you kind of know the ins and outs, right? That's kind of with your background, you can speak to not only how the land is built, but even kind of assess how many cattle this land is going to feed or the irrigation patterns in there. You can really kind of dial in when you're talking about that.
Yeah, definitely. So it's good to be able to kind of talk shop, but also provide value to a buyer. A lot of times we're not just selling a chunk of dirt. We're selling a chunk of dirt and all the improvements that come with it. And those improvements do have value. So being able to speak to those improvements, I think, is very important.
So talk to me a little bit about elk in Missouri elk have not been in Missouri for a very long time. And sort of they phased out in the 1800s. Just knowing a little bit of history, I know that Daniel Boone settled there around the late 1700s, early 1800s. I believe he spent the last 20 years of his life there. And when you read old accounts of sort of the lifestyle when he lived in that area, when he sort of moved there, they wouldn't just kill like one elk. All the reports are coming back with 12, 13 elk in an outing. Like the number of animals that they drop in a single day were just, it's hard to fathom that. So talk a little bit about that and sort of the reintroduction. Cause I mean, I understand they were hunted out. And then when you read the accounts from Daniel Boone, you're like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you kill that many animals in a day. Like
Daniel Boone and his posse may have gone out and killed 12, 13 elk in a day. And now we get to kill 5 all year total in Missouri. So yeah, like you said, elk were here in the 1800s and then overhunted. And then we're gone for a long, long time. In fact, in 2011 is when they were first reintroduced to the state of Missouri. So they were pulled from Eastern Kentucky, put into kind of a quarantine period, and then dropped off here in Missouri at the Peck Ranch. The Peck Ranch is a gigantic ranch that was donated to the Missouri Department of Conservation. 24,000 acres. And that's pretty seriously big for the state of Missouri. So originally there was 108 elk that were introduced. Now they're spanning across 3 counties, Carter County, Shannon County, and Reynolds County, which is kind of south central Missouri, a little bit more of I'll call it mountainous for Missouri type terrain. Here in Missouri, we have Highway 70 that cuts the state directly in half. So I always say that's a good dividing line. If you go north of 70, you're looking at more, tillable land, a lot flatter stuff. And then southern Missouri, where these elk are, is more of a, mountainous, hilly, a lot of waterfront, some big, real clean rivers run through these. So as close to the traditional kind of elk habitat that we see on TV as we can get here in Missouri. So like I said, they're started out with 108. Today, that population is up over 200, which has met the optimistic growth rate for the state of kind of 10% per year. And the goal of that herd is to get up somewhere around 400 to 500 elk.
So they're keeping the population fairly low for that. I guess to probably just put them in that one area and see how they hold up.
Yeah. I mean, here in Missouri, we're used to seeing whitetail deer run around, but seeing elk run around, that's quite a bit different, a lot bigger. We already have quite of an issue with whitetail deer and road accidents and, destruction of crops and things like that. So yeah, if we had an elk population that matched our deer population, we'd probably be in trouble. So, but this is a good area that they're at. It's probably one of the most remote areas in Missouri. So they're well protected, back kind of where they would have been if we were back in the 1800s. So.
Yeah, so talk to me real quick about it, just because I'm kind of interested. The game populations. I live on the West Coast, and so when I picture game populations in any given area, like when we see them, it'll be sparse. You see them once in a while. There's your typical, like you said, road accidents with animals, but we don't have nearly the density that you see back east. Like you mentioned, whitetail deer are almost a problem. There's a lot of hunters that I know that would love to have a problem out here of seeing too many whitetail deer. Now you'll see herds of mule deer and large herds of elk throughout the West, but it doesn't seem like it carries quite the density that you do see down south and back east. Talk to me a little bit about the game populations, different game that you typically hunt in Missouri, sort of like your quintessential animals that people harvest out of there.
Yeah. So number one in Missouri, I think a lot of, like a lot of other states in the Midwest would be your deer hunting. Everybody has a deer camp. Everybody and their brother is going to go out deer hunting on opening day of rifle season. So that's our mainstay. We also have, pretty good growing turkey population, as well as, traditional small game, coyotes, squirrels, and things like that. But by far and away, Missouri deer hunting is the mainstay. So, talking a little bit about the population issues, that Missouri, especially towards the bigger cities, we have a little bit of an overpopulation issues with, crowding neighborhoods and resulting in car accidents, which obviously spiked during the rut and fall. So yeah, just talking a little bit more about if it was an elk that was, if we had this elk overpopulation, I think our car accidents would be a little bit worse. And then I also wonder, if these elk travel north and start to find some of these cornfields, how big will these elk truly get? Because I know out west, there's not much corn out there, but if we start feeding these corn to these elk, that'd be a question in my head to see how that goes.
So talk to me about, when you put in for a hunt in Missouri, especially this elk hunt, because that's what we're talking about. Similar hunts that I look at for kind of your more rare species. In Idaho, we have moose and we have, bighorn. And when you do those, like, you can't put in for anything else. If you take the gamble to put in on one of these hunts in Idaho, you cannot put in for anything else hunting wise. Like, that's your chance. And then when you draw, it's a once in a lifetime. And so they really kind of like have their limitations when, like, if you want to do this, you've got to take that gamble and go all in. Is that sort of how it works in Missouri, or is it just an open put in for that?
Not necessarily. I think if you took somebody's deer hunting away from them here in Missouri so they can hunt an elk, there may be an uprising. But no, you can still, hunt everything else and get your traditional over the counter tags. Now with the elk, there is an application, an online lottery that runs from May 1st to May 31st. So you have 31 days to gamble on your lottery, basically, to see if you can be lucky enough to get pulled. Now, with that being said, only Missouri residents can be drawn. And to answer your other question, you can be drawn more than once. So if you're lucky enough to have lightning strike twice, you could potentially harvest 2 elk in Missouri in your lifetime. So out of those 5 permits, one of those will be a landowner permit, which is adjoining the Peck Ranch in those counties. With that permit, you can harvest any antlered elk. I think the restriction is it has to be over 6 inches long. And there's 2 seasons. So with your permit that you get 1 permit, obviously you can take part in 2 seasons. So from October 16th to the 24th, there is an archery season. If you're not successful during that period, there's a backup firearms portion that runs from December 11th through the 19th.
Okay. So you can take your choice, on sort of where that goes.
Yep. So I think it's nice that the archery season.
Oh, okay. So the early one's archery, the later one's rifle. That's the December one.
Yeah. So, if you want to go out and try to harvest a bull with a bow, you have that October period. But then if you're not successful, you do have that firearms portion in December.
So, and they have similar rut season out there, right? It's the late September rut that they kind of have. And I know that Kentucky ruts around then. So I'm just guessing it's being the same kind of population that they rut the same.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
But this October bow hunt doesn't look like it is in the rut. So is this mostly spot and stock with it that you're doing?
Yeah. Yep. So this is all spot and stock. Like I said, you're hunting big ridges, ravines. We do have a lot of water down in that area. So I know some hunters have kind of focused in on that water. And then it opens up a little bit, obviously, with the firearm seasons to, potentially you could do a kind of a setup, a more traditional deer hunting setup over a feeding area or something like that. December, we're getting into snow cover. Food is going to be limited. So there's, some alternatives to just spot stock that you'd be able to take advantage of in that December firearm season.
So I don't know the terrain very well, but you do. So talk to me a little bit about the elevation gain that you see as far as like when you're talking mountains, right? What kind of elevation differential is there between sort of like the river valleys to the mountain peaks? And then what's the terrain like as far as brush? If there's a rifle season, is this short range, or is this like you have a good line of sight on what you're hunting?
Yeah, so I'm glad I'm talking to you, a guy from out west. So when I say mountains, I'm talking maybe a few thousand feet in elevation, maybe. With the firearm season, a long shot, if you could shoot 300 yards, that'd be a serious shot here. So where these elk are at, it's traditionally red oaks, white oaks, black oaks, hardwood forests. During this time of the year, a lot of the brush will be off. So it'll be a little bit more open, but no, we're not having any 1,000-yard shots or anything like that here. So.
And why I wanted to ask that too was because I know how thick the brush gets, in the Midwest and east of where I am. And it's wicked to walk through anywhere off trail. Just you end up wanting a machete more than anything else to get through anywhere. Is this kind of that kind of terrain that you see?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of this area, has been logged over the last 100 to 200 years. So using those old logging roads is an effective way to get around. But, we always laugh that guys getting ready for deer season and they're sighting in their rifle after 300 yards. Well, there's not very many opportunities to shoot that rifle 300 yards around here, especially down in that area. Now, if you get up to northern Missouri where it's flatter and you have big tillable fields and things like that, then you can kind of reach out and touch them, but not so much for where these elk are at.
And that's brings up the second thing I wanted to sort of talk about is that sort of puts the advantage in the elk's hands in my mind, as far as if you're doing a spot and stock hunt in loud, thick brush, you're talking about 1,000-pound animal that can ghost you in a couple of feet. I mean, They vanish and they are fast and they're sneaky, and you usually don't know that you are near one until one explodes out of the bushes next to you. And all you hear is the sound of it running away, over a mountaintop. So like, I picture a lot of this, obviously guides are going to know the area. If they get one of these hunts, you're probably going to have a guide. Is that traditionally a guiding area or?
No. So a lot of these guys are local landowners. So far we don't have any guides that are doing this. So if you're not one of the landowner tags, you have a couple options. You can hunt on the Peck Ranch or some of the large conservation areas that are in that area on public land. But no, this is all kind of free chase by yourself. I think a lot of the folks that have been drawn, have a little bit of experience, maybe going out west and hunting these elk. So they have an idea of what they're going after. But for some of these folks, it's brand new, something new to try out. So we've had 2 seasons of this elk hunt, and we've had 100% success rate. So these folks who are lucky enough to get drawn have figured out a way to make it happen. But it's challenging. I think, if you're lucky enough to get, out of only 5 permits and you're lucky enough to be one of them, you got to spend some time during those 2 periods to make sure you're successful, because you may never get the chance again.
I was just going to say, if you are lucky enough to draw one of those tags, this is something where you would want to put in a good chunk of time scouting and knowing the exact patterns and where they're feeding, because they can roam 20, 30 miles in a couple of days, with their normal patterns. In this area, they are kind of confined in there. How large of an area did you say the park is?
So the original Peck Ranch where they were introduced is 24,000 acres. Now it's not high fence, so they are able to expand from there. So they're ranging about 3 counties, and these are pretty large counties, but I'd say the heart of the herd is still kind of within that 24 to maybe 30,000 acre range.
And that size, that chunk, a piece of land that size in Missouri, that's pretty significant, right?
Yeah, definitely so. That's probably one of the bigger pieces of ground, contiguous pieces of ground in the state.
So is this something that's pretty popular? Are people talking about this?
Oh yeah, definitely so. I mean, every year, every person who has harvested elk has got their own report in the local newspaper, even up here in St. Louis or Kansas City, some of the larger areas. All these folks are lucky enough to not only get to kill an elk, but also seem to be highlighted in their local newspaper. And so the word's traveling fast. I don't know if you have better chances of harvesting an elk or winning the Powerball here in Missouri, but everybody's giving it a shot.
So there's like a full write-up in the local paper. So this isn't, in some places in the US where, the harvesting of an animal can be like sort of, it's not as widely publicized. I would say in local papers, like in Missouri, like this is a big deal. Like it's a cultural thing. hunting is kind of like a part of life in a lot of areas. So this is kind of you get some celebrity status out of this.
Oh yeah, definitely so. And I think you got a lot of people jealous of you as well. I'm sure you have a lot of buddies. A lot of buddies are wanting to tag along with these people just to see how it goes. But yeah, local news have always really supported hunting here in Missouri. Every little girl who harvests the biggest buck on opening weekend, she's going to have a front page cover. So it's definitely growing in popularity. I think when they introduced it, I'm sure, man, they probably about broke the internet with the amount of guys that are trying to apply to win one of these tags.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. And then so yeah, talk to me about sort of how this works in the Peck Ranch. Like, is it? And I want to lead into more of a conversation about like hunting in general in Missouri, just because it is different than sort of what I see out west. So talk to me first about the Peck Ranch, and then tell me a little bit about, hunting in Missouri, I'm guessing, is mostly lease and private land, that sort of thing, as compared to like public land hunts where you just go out and go.
Yeah, definitely. So the Peck Ranch is a little bit different, as it has a game preserve, a refuge, if you will. So to hunt whitetail, we'll say inside of that refuge, you do need there's another online lottery system to be able to hunt inside the refuge. Now we're talking about 24,000 acres. So there is some ground that's outside of the refuge where you can hunt kind of as is, walk in, just following statewide regulations. So if you and your buddy got lucky enough to have one of these elk permits and you wanted to kind of tag along and do a little bit of deer hunting with them through that spot and stock, but you could definitely do that. But yeah, like you said, the main difference between, here in Missouri and maybe where you're out west is, I just said this 24,000 acre conservation area is gigantic for us here in the state. So we do have a lot of public hunting opportunities for deer and turkey and things like that, just on a little bit smaller scale. So they're kind of scattered throughout Missouri. Some are closer to the densely populated areas. Then we have some like the Peck Ranch where are really remote and a little bit larger tracts. So we definitely have our fair share of public land hunting here. We also have quite a bit of deer leases. And then our folks that hunt on private ground. So the deer leases here in Missouri are pretty competitive, come with a little bit of a price, and their families like to hold on to them. So they're not easy to come by as well.
Okay. So when a lease comes up, usually people are on it pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. So every now and then you'll see one on Facebook or Craigslist, and it's usually spoken for the next day. So people don't have an issue, selling or their hunting lease here.
That sounds very good. So you work mostly with sort of private land, recreational tracts, that kind of a thing. Yeah,
definitely. So the number one thing that my clients are looking for typically is they want a recreational hunting piece so that they can go out and do traditional deer hunting and turkey hunting. But if it can pay for itself, or have a little bit of income generation, whether that be tillable soils or possible timber harvest, something like that, that's usually our perfect world, to be able to have that 100 acres that you can go hunt on, that maybe makes enough money to pay the taxes and take care of maintenance. That's traditionally what most of the folks here from St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, some of the more populated areas are looking for. And we've seen that become increasingly popular over the past few years. Even on a little bit smaller scale, it seems like almost everybody now is wanting 10, 20, 30, 40 acres where they can just kind of get away on the weekend, maybe do a little bit of deer hunting, mainly just have a place to get away with the family.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, it's always interesting to me because sort of being out west, there's a lot of wide open space. And then you talk about back east, and it's like almost like a full contact sport to get into like a rec property or a lease or something like that. What's the minimum size that somebody looking to buy land or even a seller, right, looking to sell their land for a specific purpose? What's the minimum size you would say that you would want for something like a hunting tract?
Yeah, I was just talking to one of my good clients this morning. He owns 1,500 acres, right? A pretty good size farm, but it's kind of, tall and skinny if you looked at it on a map. Well, he had 5 of the biggest deer on his farm got killed off of his farm by neighbors, during gun season. And the biggest one, he showed me a picture of it this morning, was killed on a 30-acre tract. So this little 30-acre tract killed the biggest deer that was adjoining this 1,500-acre tract. So I'd say, minimum, man, you could do it on 5 acres. If you had it set up correctly and you had one, quality spot, you had all the right habitat and you're in the right place at the right time. I think a 5-acre tract would be just fine.
Why? So you would be kind of socked in there close to your neighbors, but I guess everybody in that area would probably have a similar style tract where like you're not upsetting anybody by touching one off.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, everything is just on a little bit smaller scale here in Missouri, because we have had so many of these larger farms that were broken down into 40-acre tracts. And then, as population has increased, we've taken these 40-acre tracts and we've taken them down and put them into 5s and 10s where you could have a small house and a little bit of woods. And yeah, there's quite a few guys who have their home sit on 5 acres and they have, 3 acres of woods and maybe a little food plot back there that are coming home from work and hunting in the backyard. So deer hunting is very close to home here. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So like most of these, everybody's, that gets set up with a tract, they set up a food plot, they set up water, that kind of a thing. So, and then I'm guessing not a lot of fences in order to encourage wildlife to move. So there's a bit of agriculture. It's almost like fishing, right? Like everybody's throwing their bait out, hoping to attract the right one in that area.
Oh, yeah.
Have that right?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely quite a bit of competition amongst neighbors here when everything is so, focused in on one area. And, but we do have good things going on where some guys are putting together deer co-ops where they're kind of coming together with a shared interest, sharing some costs of maybe planning for food plots. They'll all come together and rent a no-till drill for the weekend or for the week, plant together, maybe have a minimum size animal that they're all willing to take within a, few mile section of ground. So the deer co-op thing is becoming more popular. So it's helping out with that competition a little bit.
I was going to say that probably helps manage the population a little bit. If you have some sort of designated, like we don't take anything below this size, that sort of, those things help, right?
Yeah, definitely so. And there are a few of those select areas in Missouri where, man, that quality is, if you go 10 miles over, that quality is not the same, but it's these small areas where, there may be one large landowner or a team of guys that come together and really focused on helping the population, providing good habitat and good food. And those areas are very well spoken for. And there's a lot of out-of-state people who are coming in trying to buy up in those areas. So.
Yeah, and you were talking about this landowner. You said 1,300 acres. That somebody with 30 acres got the biggest deer in that area. I'm guessing all those guys probably knew each other, and they're probably just texting back and forth, like, "Oh yeah,
oh yeah." I'm sure there was a group chat going on fire that whole weekend. So you're based close to Peck Ranch, correct? Yeah. Peck Ranch is probably about 2 hours south of us. So we're here right at that I-70 line. We're right on that dividing line. So yeah, we can get down to this area. Reynolds County is one of the counties that we work quite a bit in. The Black River flows through Reynolds County, and that's one of those places where a lot of people want to buy. A lot of these folks from St. Louis want recreational ground with river frontage on the Black River. So through that, I've become pretty familiar with the area. Peck Ranch, Reynolds County. So yeah, we can definitely get down there pretty quick to help anybody out who might be interested in purchasing or possibly selling some ground in that area. So
yeah, and I think that's one thing to touch on is for you as a land professional, as opposed to, when you think real estate, right? When you're talking to a land professional versus like a residential person, you usually picture a residential person as they usually live within a given area. They normally drive, like 45 minutes in a day, maybe to get to a listing or to work with somebody or to work with a client. You routinely are driving 3-4 hours just to get somewhere, right? It's pretty wide ranging.
Yeah, there's a lot of windshield time in what we do. Like I said, we kind of go down towards the Boot Heel, which for me would be maybe a 3-hour drive, and then north up to Mark Twain Lake. But yeah, this Reynolds County area is about 2 hours for us. And, we do quite a bit of business down there. One of those counties where those larger farms are getting broke down into 40 and 50 acre tracts, which is just making it more affordable for the person to come down from St. Louis or some of the more populated areas so they can, have a cabin, maybe have a little bit of river frontage, a place to go deer hunting. And who knows, maybe one day they'll have a place to go elk hunting as well.
Yeah, I'm always blown away with just how elk behave. Just like I said, it's an animal the size of a car that can disappear right in front of your eyes. They haven't lived this long for no reason. They're a very capable animal.
I picture a guy down in that county, sitting there having his morning coffee and, used to looking out the door and maybe he'll see some deer, some turkey and some squirrels running around. I picture him sitting there having a cup of coffee, looking up one day and there's a bull elk. And I think that'd be a pretty exciting view to see.
That would be, yeah, they're impressive animals. That's neat. Well, hey, Alec, I want to thank you very much for your time here. I appreciate it. And again, it's great to hear sort of the knowledge base that you have specifically about the land, your given area. Much appreciated. So if somebody's looking for land in the Missouri area, how do they get a hold of you and talk to me about your team?
Yeah, guys. So if you're interested in land, whether that's north or south I-70, I always say Missouri kind of has it all. So, you can always give me a call. Our office is here in Wentzville, so you can give me a call or send me an email. We do have 3 offices now in the state of Missouri. We have an office in kind of southwest Missouri in Clinton. We have an office right smack dab in the middle of the state, which is our Centralia office, and then our Eastern Missouri office here where I broker it, and we have 2 agents that also work out of this office. So we are geographically doing a really good job of covering the entire state, and also have guys right there on the Kansas side as well that you can contact.
So drop me the number too. What are people going to call you?
Yeah. So give me a call. My phone number is 636-577-5288.
Perfect. And that email is?
A Wardenburg, WARDENBURG @nationalland.com.
Perfect. I will post that in the notes. We'll make sure to get your info in there.
Yeah, it's not an easy one. Always got to spell that one out.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much for your time, and I will let you carry on with your day.
All right. Thank you much.
This concludes episode number 3 of the National Land Realty Podcast, discussing elk hunting in Missouri with one of our land professionals, Alec Wardenburg, out of Oxford, Mississippi. You can learn more about land ownership or the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com.